We want to show our viewers a little bit of action on the Senate floor yesterday. Al Franken, the liberal Democratic senator from Minnesota, was in the chair presiding over the Senate when Joe Lieberman wanted a little more time to speak on the Senate floor. As you know, Joe Lieberman has become a dirty word amongst liberal Democrats. Take a look.
Pretty much everybody in our country.
The senator has spoken for 10 minutes.
I wonder if I could ask unanimous consent for just an additional moment.
In my capacity as senator from Minnesota, I object.
Really? Oh, okay. Don't take it personally.
I have never quite seen something like that. The presiding officer objecting to giving another senator just a minute of airtime. But now, to tell us about it, Mike Allen, chief political correspondent, chief White House correspondent, chief correspondent, chief figure in Washington for Politico.
Just hoping for another moment,
everything,
if you will.
Okay, we'll get back to Al Franken and Joe Lieberman, but give us the bottom line because you know what's going to happen here. Are they going to pass this bill?
They are, but the ideal timeline takes them, as you suggested earlier, 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve. It's incredible. And I think Senator Alexander makes a great point that if you're a normal person in America, that is anyone outside this studio, it looks absurd. The first health care vote under ideal circumstances, 1 a.m. Monday. Now what's exciting about that is if they have 60 votes then, we probably have health care. And then the rest is just going to be working through the time requirements that they have. But there's a real high-stakes poker here because, as you know, Senator Reid does not yet have that 60th vote. They're doing two things today. One is floor people for Senator Reid, the majority leader, and Senator Durbin, the whip, are meeting with parliamentary experts, trying to find their way through this thicket Republicans are set up, and they're sitting there with aides to Senator Nelson, Mr. 60, wanting to know what they need to do for insurers in Nebraska. It's not going to be a Nebraska purchase. He's not asking for goodies, but he is asking for a lot of tweaks.
Mike, let me get an understanding from you on where Senator Snowe is sitting right now. You just heard John ask Senator Alexander about her. He said she's the one saying don't rush, don't rush. So they think they've got her securely in opposition. But the White House seems to still be working her quite hard.
They are, and she has at every turn not showed her cards, waited till the very end, and it's been a mistake for the White House to count on her. I think as we look back on this, we'll say that the White House was overly optimistic in some of their assumptions, and being able to count on Senator Snowe was one of them.
So, but it sounds like what you're saying, going back, that they're talking about these insurance issues for Nebraska. I mean, do you get the sense, what's the body language? Are they confident that they're going to get Nelson? I
feel like that they are going to get it. That they're counting him as 60, and his chief of staff has flown into D.C. from Nebraska to walk through. The dollar amounts are not big, but it's very small changes. And that's why, even if we get through this drama of Christmas Eve, or even there's a scenario where they do it on Christmas Day, then trying to get this through the House is going to be very difficult because they're going to have to go through the charade of making changes to please people in the House. But there's very little room to work with. There's not many threads that you can pull on this sweater before it all comes apart. And the House people well know that.
Right. Nancy Pelosi has indicated as much. Mike, speaking a little bit,
but she is going to go through the motions. She said just today in an interview in Copenhagen, I'm not going to accept this. So that's the dance that they have to play. She keeps talking about doing it before State of the Union, which would be end of January, early February. Of course, the White House, they want it done by January 20th. They don't want every one of the first-year anniversary stories about President Obama to be about how this wasn't done.
No doubt about it. They say by the third week of January, they don't want to ever talk about health care again. But here's my question about the politics of that, Mike. Do they believe in the White House, is your sense that they believe the president sitting there in the Rose Garden or out in the country at some hospital like the Mayo Clinic or something, signs a bill, 30 million people that didn't have insurance, and all of a sudden this becomes a really political boost to the president and his party?
That is a great point. No, they have a huge sales job. This is why the Chief of Staff, Rahm Emanuel, has always wanted this to be done by November, so that they would have a full year to explain it and sell it. Now they're behind by several months. It's unpopular. I think the president will get a boost, but you're right. People are not going to all of a sudden like this. We're starting to see the beginning of the sales job. They now have put out a list of what will take effect in 2010, the benefits that people will start to see. But that's a very difficult spot that the president's going to be in.
And most of those 30 million people aren't going to have health insurance for another 4 years.
Right.
Well, and a lot of them are going to be in Medicaid. A big problem for this president is disappointment. That what's in this bill, people don't think the things that people think are in there might not necessarily be. People just really don't know where it is. And I think Senator Alexander makes a perfectly fair point that it's still being made up as they go along.
Incredible to be at this point and not actually see the bill. But the larger point, and this is something that David mentioned in his top line at the start of the show, the sense of can the president close? I mean, how worried is the White House about this? I mean, they don't have, at this point, a lot of the points on the board that they want.
Right. I think, by the way, just while you guys have been on the air, there are some positive signs in Copenhagen. He may close there. His history of day trips to Copenhagen isn't too great, but he may come in with some better news. They just announced a bilateral meeting with the Chinese premier, which had been off. So there's some good signs there. And they do believe that the president is going to deliver on health care. But John,
right.
You look back to the timelines that we originally imagined. You look at the words of what was originally imagined for healthcare. This is so different.
Sorry to interrupt you. We're running out of time, and I'm going to leave it there with your breaking news out of Copenhagen. And we thank you for being here. I appreciate your presence. Mike
Happy
Allen,
holidays.
Chief White House Correspondent at Politico. That does it for this edition of Top Line. John, thank you very much. Click us on again Monday.